Yesterday, an Arizona judge sided with the Arizona Free Enterprise Club and temporarily blocked implementation of parts of Arizona's election procedures manual issued by Secretary of State Adrian, including some parts of the manual that Fontes says were designed to protect voters and election workers from harassment.
And Secretary Fontes is joining us right now on Arizona's Morning News in studio to discuss that judge's decision. And we wanted to ask you about what your legal options are. With such a short time before the general election, I mean, it's coming up in 3 months. But first, could you explain who this election procedure manual is made for and what parts of it were blocked by the judge?
Yeah, thanks for having me. First and foremost, I'm going to break a rule and talk about pending litigation. Usually I don't, but this is important, and this manual, the Elections Procedures Manual, is promulgated by the Secretary of State every 2 years. And the rules that are in question right now are guidelines, basically, for elections workers, for election administrators across the state. And they do, in this section, particularly help to protect them and voters from harassment and intimidation, specifically using language like, quote, blocking the entrance to a voting location, close quote. Also, following voters or poll workers coming or leaving voting locations, including to or from their vehicles. This is some of the language that we put in there, which was also in the 2019 manual, by the way, that the Free Enterprise Club wanted to block, and they have now blocked. It is as if the Free Enterprise Club wants voters to get followed to and from their vehicles to polling locations. It is as if the Free Enterprise Club is okay with this. Check this. They had this blocked by the judge, too. Intentionally disseminating false or misleading information at voting locations. So, is the Free Enterprise Club want people to be lied to?
But that's free speech, right?
Is it when you are inside of the 75-foot zone? Look, not all speech is protected. Every American knows this. You can't yell fire.
And you're not allowed to electioneer within those 75 feet.
That's exactly right. But what the Free Enterprise Club is doing is chipping away at long-established statutes. They're chipping away at our ability to help the folks out there in our 15 counties regulate the behavior during election seasons. They basically want someone to be able to come up and scream and yell at voters as they're standing in line to vote.
But not necessarily about the election or electioneering. I mean, you could just be yelling at somebody, right? It doesn't have to be about the specific election itself.
Is that
right?
how we want our voters to be treated?
No, I'm just
Absolutely
saying
not. And
that's
why
not considered electioneering.
That's
right?
why I'm going to fight like heck to make sure that we have peaceful processes so that our voters are treated with dignity during this incredibly important point in time. Because here's the deal. You have to stand in line in some circumstances. And because the regulation is that you have to be in line, the government is forcing you to be in that line. You should be protected while you're in that line to vote. So the Free Enterprise Club is basically saying, we want chaos. We want lies. We want people to be able to block entrances to voting locations. That's what the Free Enterprise Club is saying by asking for this order. I'm going to fight tooth and nail against this nonsense. So the next steps, as you asked, we have the capacity to appeal. Our lawyers are working on it right now. I'm going to protect every voter. I don't care if you're in Sun City, East Mesa, or in Holbrook. Yeah. I'm going to do everything I can to make this process peaceful and reasonable.
But as Jamie pointed out, we're just weeks away from the general election. How soon? I mean, you've got to get this moving quickly here.
Well, of course, we're going to encourage our lawyers to try to get the courts to expedite this as quickly as possible. But the bottom line is this. This isn't about whether or not we're trying to block free speech, because the First Amendment also allows for peaceable assembly. What about the free speech or the First Amendment rights of voters and election workers to peaceably assemble? What about the rights of Americans to have a peaceful democracy? The Free Enterprise Club is fighting against that, and for that, they are wrong.
I have two questions here, two different things. One of them, so did the judge say it was okay to block entrances? Is that what you're saying?
The judge has enjoined us from enforcing these regulations in the Elections Procedures Manual.
Okay. And then the second thing is about...
And this specific language, by the way, that I just quoted.
Let me ask this real quick. Who is supposed to be enforcing this? I mean, are you expecting the poll workers to enforce this?
Absolutely.
So they would actually have to go out and tell people they have to move their car, and if they don't move their car, what happens then?
In Arizona statute, we've got an officer of the elections office called a marshal who's appointed by the election director at each polling location. That marshal is charged with the security and orderly conduct of the elections. And if they have issues, then they call law enforcement. These are regular people, though. Imagine the Free Enterprise Club wanting these kinds of conflicts, wanting this kind of disorder. What's that going to do for Arizona's business reputation? I think the Free
So-
Enterprise Club ought to really second guess who they're getting their legal advice from on these elections issues.
So did the judge just think that the rules that were added were a little too broad? Does he want them more specific or narrowed?
The judge has blocked these parts of the elections procedures manual. I'm not in the judge's head, but this is at the request of the Free Enterprise Club. And they convinced the judge to do this. So the judge is interpreting the way the judge wanted to interpret. I don't put it on the court. I put this on the Free Enterprise Club in the first place. They want your vote. They want my voters to be harassed. They want my voters to be in chaos. And I'm not going to let the Free Enterprise Club get away with this. This isn't on the court. This is on the plaintiffs who brought this ridiculous. And by the way, most of this case was already dismissed because the other claims were so crazy, so weird, that they've already been dismissed by the court. And and I don't care what your political party is, folks. This is bad for Arizona's reputation, which is bad for Arizona's business. And the Free Enterprise Club is supposed to be promoting business, and they're doing exactly the opposite here. So I'll tell you folks out there, if you're a donor to the Free Enterprise Club, if you give money or support this particular organization, you better call them up and ask them if they really want chaos out there and they want Arizona to continue to put the AZ in crazy.
I don't want to diminish what you walked in here to talk about this morning, but we cannot let you go without asking you. You're a leader in the Arizona Democratic Party. You're the second highest elected Democrat in state office. So I wanted to get your opinion on Kamala Harris's pick of Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, passing over Arizona Senator Mark Kelly.
Well, I'll take off my official hat and put on my personal Adrian, the Democrat hat.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think he's phenomenal. I think the guy has done some really good things he's got, they're feeding kids in his state. What could be better than that? They're letting people do what they want to do. In his state, they're actually doing some good stuff. And by the way, he's going to be great on the campaign trail. So, but I can separate those political opinions from my duty to all of the voters in Arizona. And I appreciate the question, but I'm going to circle back to this. The Free Enterprise Club is doing a bad thing here. And they're absolutely unjustified in doing what they're doing, pretending like some weirdo who wants to scream at voters has more important First Amendment rights than the voters who are peaceably assembled to vote. That is absolutely wrong-headed, and I am not going to stand for it.
All right. That is Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes joining us here in studio on Arizona's Morning News.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.